Have you ever had a stalker? And when I say stalker, I'm talking about a real stalker. I'm not talking about somebody that looked at your Instagram page to look at all of the stuff that you actually post for everybody in the world to see. I'm talking about a real stalker, someone that has followed you around, done things that just actually made you feel uncomfortable in real life. Well, I did, and it was a really spooky, weird situation. And I don't even really even know if it was real, but I'm going to tell you about that right after the intro. Okay, so this happened when I was probably about 16 years old. I was in high school. I worked at a local grocery store, and usually when I worked at that store, I was hired to work in the produce department. I was the person that put out all your greens and your lettuce and stock the grapes and all of that kind of stuff and make sure there's nothing on the floor for people to have slip and falls or anything like that. But this one day, my supervisor told me, they needed some help in the frozen food dairy section and asked me if I can come in and work a few hours in that section. So I did it. I looked at it. It was extra hours. And of course, in high school, all I wanted was ways to make more money. So I came in, one day after school. It was probably around a 7 to 10 shift or 7 to 11, something like that. So I came in and I worked, and it was a pretty easy shift. There was a full-time dairy, frozen food person, and that person had already stocked everything. So basically, all I had to do was just keep an eye on everything. And as things got low, I had to go in the back and get more things to, bring the stock back up to par, And, being that it was a weekday and it was like an evening shift hours or whatever, it wasn't that much stuff, being purchased from those sections at that time. Not to the point where I had to do too much replenishing of the merchandise that had been sold. Sometimes throughout that shift, the 2% milk had gotten low. So I had to go in the back and get a couple cases of the 2% milk, the gallon sizes. I had to get about, 2 cases. So I bring the 2 cases out and I'm, over there and I'm just taking my time. I'm just trying to, fill out my time, and I'm putting the cartons of milk into place and trying to sort the dates so that the older dates are towards the front and the newer dates is in the back. So while I'm stocking these 2% milk, I kind of just feel something. I feel like the hair on the back of my neck just stands up, and I just feel something almost like a little tingling on my shoulders, So I'm like, what in the world? So I kind of look out of the corner of my eye, and I can see something at the end of the aisle. So I look over and I see this guy. I couldn't kind of make out his face or anything. It was just some guy standing there. He had on like a sweatshirt, one of the zip down sweatshirts with the hoodies, and he didn't have the hoodie over his head, but he had it kind of propped up like on his shoulder, kind of propped up like that. And it was just weird because the way that he was standing, it was like in the shadowy part of that aisle. For some reason, it was a light out, and it was like he was just standing there in a position or in an area where I couldn't quite make out his face. So I'm like, who is this person? Why is he standing there? I'm kind of expecting him to come over and ask questions, because most of the time when you see people in that aisle in that particular store, whenever you see them, they're usually going right towards what they want to get, whether it be eggs or milk or yogurt or whatever, and they grab it and they leave, or they're coming to ask you a question like, where is the rice, stuff like that. And I have to tell them where it is. So I'm kind of expecting this person to come in and ask me for, where something is, but he doesn't. He just stands there for a few seconds, and then he kind of just like takes a couple of steps sideways until he's not on my aisle anymore. So I'm sitting there looking. So I walk down to the end of the aisle to see, where he went. And when I get to the end of the aisle and look, I don't see him, I don't see him anywhere. So I walk over an aisle over and just look down the aisles. Don't see him anywhere. So I just kind of like said, forget it, and went back and finished doing my work. The next week when I came into work, my supervisor asked me to do it again. So the next week on the same day, I think it was a Thursday. So the next week I come into work, and my supervisor had asked me to come in and do it again. And I go in there, and the same thing. It was a pretty slow evening. Not much was going on. I had to stock a few cartons of eggs at one point, and I had to add some more milk at one point. Just basically stuff like that. I just basically had to be there to make sure that things don't get too low, and that I can answer questions when people are looking for different items. But this particular day, the supervisor, not my supervisor, but like the store manager, calls me, to the front, calls me on the PA system, and asks me to come to the front. So I go up front. The manager calls me into the office and she mentioned something about me writing on the wall. And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, yeah, you keep writing on the walls in the bathroom. We keep having, the night janitorial staff clean off the walls. You can't be doing that. So I tell her, I'm like, I didn't write anything on the walls. What are you talking about? Of course, she didn't believe me, So I'm like, I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm thinking about wondering what she's talking about. So I was like, where is it that I'm supposedly writing on the walls? And she says, in the bathroom. So after I finish this conversation with her, I walk into the bathroom and I look around and I don't see anything written anywhere, and I don't even see where it looked like anything had been cleaned off of anything. It just looked like a dingy grocery store bathroom, So I just left out and I'm like, I don't know what she's talking about, and I kind of blew it off. I should have looked into it a little bit more, but I kind of blew it off. So that Saturday came, and that Saturday I was back working in the produce section, back in my normal section. So I'm at work on Saturday, and about halfway through my shift. That particular day I was working like an 8-hour shift. When I'm halfway through the shift, I see that same manager walking through again, and she brings it up again. This time she doesn't pull me in the office or anything. She has like a little bit, she's kind of upset a little bit, but she comes over and she was complaining that, they had to have the janitorial staff clean the walls again, and I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, well, last night you wrote on the walls again. And I was like, well, I wasn't even here. I didn't even work yesterday. Of course, she kind of gives me a look. She don't believe me. I can tell she don't believe me. Then I was like, what in the world? So about a week later, I come into work. As soon as I walk through the front door and I clock in, that same supervisor, that same manager is there, and the manager calls me, just kind of holds her finger up for me to walk over. And when I walk over, she says again, she was like, you did it again. You wrote on the walls. And I was like, well, what are they writing on the wall? They're writing your name. I was like, my name? So I was like, can you show me? She was like, okay, follow me. So I follow her and we go out of the office and we walk all the way towards the left side of the building, and then we go through these doors. Now, these doors is something that I've actually never gone through before. Now, when you get through these doors, it's kind of dark, and the lights are real dim and everything. And there's a set of stairs that go straight up. So I'm like, what is this? I've never seen this before. And she said, this is the banquet room. So we go up to the top of the stairs, and sure enough, when we get to the top of the stairs, there's a big room. It looks like it's a room that people can rent out when they want to have like dinners or some kind of activity or something like that, or meeting room or something. It's just a large room with a bunch of tables and chairs and stuff. And I had never seen this room. I didn't even know it existed. So we go to the back of that room and go to a little hallway, and you see a set of restrooms, and I didn't even know those restrooms were there. So we go into the restroom, the men's restroom, and sure enough, on the wall in the men's restroom, it says DJ was here. Which was odd because, not many people call me DJ. I mean, it's not hard to figure out because it's my initials, but like at work, everybody called me by my last name because there were several people that worked there that had my first name. So I was known by my last name. And most people just call me by my first name. There are very few people that call me by my initials, DJ. But sure enough, DJ was here, was written on the wall in marker. And so I was like, I don't know how that got there. I said, I never knew this part of the store even existed. So she kind of like gives me a look like she doesn't believe me. And she was like, I'm not playing games. This has to stop, So I'm like, man, And she kind of like the way she was so adamant about it, it kind of made me think that they was about to let me go. And I didn't want to lose my job. Shoot, I was in high school and that was my only source of money. So I needed my money, So what I started doing is every day when I came to work, I would go to that bathroom and check the wall. And sure enough, every time I went to that bathroom and checked the walls, my name was written on that wall on a different spot. Sometimes it's right near the mirror, near the sink. Sometimes it's inside of one of the stalls. Sometimes it's on the back wall. But my name was always written on the wall every time I went. And it said different things. At first, it started out with saying DJ was here. And then sometimes it'll say something like DJ from Produce is here. And then sometimes it'll say something like I'm watching you, DJ. And then the things that was written on the wall became to where they were messages to me and not like me writing stuff on the wall. But every time I saw it, I actually got to a point where I was keeping cleaning supplies like right in the little closet that's inside the bathroom. Every time I saw it, I would scrub it and clean it off because I didn't didn't want the manager to see it because I thought she was about to let me go. But yeah, it was weird because every time I would check, I would see that. So after a while, this went on for like maybe 2 or 3 more weeks. And after a while, I was like, this is crazy. I got to find out who's doing this, you know? So one day I'm at work and I'm working in the dairy section again, stocking milk and eggs and all of that kind of stuff, which I hadn't been doing that for a while. I did it for those few weeks, but then it kind of stopped when the writing on the wall thing started. I went back to working in the dairy section, and all of a sudden, I see that guy again, that guy that I saw at the beginning of this story, the same guy. He had on the same sweatshirt, the zippered down sweatshirt, wearing his hood like in a weird way, sort of like he was covering his ears with it, sort of like a scarf type thing. And I saw him, you know. I look at him, and I was in the middle of doing, I think I was at that particular time, I was in the middle of helping a customer with something, you know, giving directions. And I saw this person, he was just standing there looking. And right then, I was like, I'm gonna go talk to this guy, you know? So after I finished helping the customer, I turned around to go talk to this guy. He was not there anymore. So I go down to the end of the aisle and I'm looking all over and I don't see him, you know? And then I went back to stocking shelves and stocking milk and eggs and all of that stuff again. And then it hit me. I was like, I wonder if this person is the one that's doing it. So I went up those stairs to that bathroom, and I had already checked that bathroom when I first got to work, and it was clean. So I went up those stairs to the bathroom, and when I went up there, sure enough, it was a message. It said, "I saw you today, DJ," like that. And I was like, what in the world is going on? So I cleaned it off, you know, and I went downstairs, and then I went to the front desk, and that manager was there. So I went to the front desk and I said, you know, think I know who's been writing on the walls. And she was like, well, I haven't seen it lately. And I was like, yeah, I know, because I've been cleaning it off. Every time I come to work, I go and check. And if I see something, I've been cleaning it off. And I said, but today I noticed some person was watching me, and right after I had already checked it at that time, and right after he left the store, I went up there and some more writing was up there and I cleaned it off. Well, of course, the manager, she didn't believe me. She kind of actually got kind of loud with me, thinking that I'm making up stories and stuff like that. She's like, this is not a game. This is not a joke. Just stop doing it, you know? And I'm telling her, and I was like, I'm serious. The person was standing at the end of my aisle a couple of minutes before I came in here, you know? And I was like, I just went up there right after he left my aisle. I went up there and it was something written on the wall, and I cleaned it off and I came back down and came to you. So it hadn't have been no more than like a good 10 minutes ago that he was right on my aisle. While she was sitting there looking at me, you know, I could tell she still didn't believe me. I just was like, aren't there video cameras in the store? Can we just look to see who this person is? I was like, you can see him. And I was like, maybe we could see if he went to that bathroom up there. So she, you know, for a while, she didn't want to do it. She just was like, stop lying and stop making up stuff. But eventually we went over to the video cameras and we tried to rewind the time back to the time that I was talking about. But for some reason, the camera skipped. We were missing about a good half hour of time. And it was weird because when we saw it was missing that time, she actually thought that I did it. She thought that because I brought up the cameras, that I knew about the cameras and that I was the one that went in there and deleted the time. What I thought was going to help me actually didn't help me. It just made her think even more that I was lying about the situation. So after that, I really started paying attention. You know, I really started paying attention to everybody walking in and out the store. When I was on that aisle, when I had to work in that aisle, on the dairy aisle, I would always hang towards the end of the aisle where I had a clear view of those the stairways that go to the back that goes up to that banquet area. And when I was in the produce section, you know, I was already near those back stairways, you know, being that I never knew where those stairways led, you know, before all of this stuff happened, but I was already near there. So I just constantly was keeping an eye on those stairways, you know. So one day I'm on the produce aisle and I'm working and I'm standing there staring at the stairway, and I see this guy slowly taking steps down those stairs, coming from down those stairs, you know. So he takes a step from down those stairs, and when he gets to the bottom, he looks up and he sees me. And when he does see me, he kind of just smiles, you know. So I'm like, what in the world? Then he turned around and run out the front door. So right after that, I ran to those stairs and I went up the stairs and looked in the bathroom, and sure enough, there was a message on the wall again, had my name. This time it had my full name, my first name and my last name, which really creeped me out because I did wear a name tag, but it didn't have my real name on it. It was weird that this person knew my full name and I didn't know how, you know. So I see the message on the wall and I just cleaned it off, you know, everything. And then I just started paying more attention every time I went to work, paying more attention. So one day I come into work and I'm working in the produce section, in my normal section, and I'm towards the back of the store, not where I can see the steps, not where I can see the front door or anything. I was kind of towards the back of the store. I think I was stocking like some watermelon or something like that, fruits or something, which was towards the back of the store. And while I was doing that, all of a sudden I turn around and this guy is standing right in front of me. It's like a older man, he was kind of older, had like a scruffy beard, a lot more scruffier than mine, with gray in it and everything. And he was wearing that same gray hoodie, zip down hoodie with the zipper in the front, and he had the hood part of it pulled up over his ears, kind of wearing it like a scarf. And he just stands there and he's just looking at me because he looks like he didn't realize I was going to be there. And then I have a startled look in his face because this is the first time I've actually got a clear look at this guy. He was just a creepy looking guy, I kind of froze for a minute. So he kind of looked at me for a minute. And then after he got over being startled, he gave me that same silly smile, that same spooky. Then he turned around and started walking away. And when he walked away, I noticed he had a little bit of a limp. So he was walking and limping away, and he was limping down the aisle on the back of the store. So I started following him, and I called out to him, "Hey, stop for a minute, stop." He kind of just kept looking back at me with this goofy smile, and then kept limping away. So then next thing you know, he turned down an aisle and started limping away. So I ran to try to catch up to him. And when I turned down the aisle, I bumped right into the manager. The manager was like, "Why are you running through the store?" And then I said, "Did you just see the guy pass you with the hoodie?" And she was like, "What guy?" She was like, "Nobody else is in the store. What are you talking about?" So after that, I kind of looked around and it kind of creeped me out a little bit because for one thing, him just popping up in my face like that, and he just looked so spooky, and then he just seemed to just disappear. I never saw him. Once he turned that corner, I never saw him. The manager was on that aisle and didn't see him, and I never seen him leave the store or anything. But after that, I continued to check the restrooms and check the walls and stuff to see if anything was written, but it all kind of stopped. Everything stopped. No more words or anything was on the wall. No more, my name wasn't anywhere, and I never saw that guy again. So it was weird situation. Have you ever had a situation like that where you just had some kind of weird, spooky thing happen that you just can't explain, once it's over? Yeah, that's my story for today. That was my story of the spooky grocery store stalker guy, Hope you enjoyed it. Hope I never run into this guy again. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. You made it to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. While you're here, why don't you check out that video right there? Or maybe that one right there. And while you're at it, go ahead and click my image in the middle there and subscribe to this channel.